What's up, Cardfight Vanguard fans and YouTube? This is Jeremy from Team 20 to Drive, going to bring you a deck check today. I'm going to go over my Kagero deck with Dragonic Overlord the X that I'm probably going to play at Team Regionals in a couple of weeks. Thought I'd get this deck list up before the Mexico City Regional this week so that way people can see what they're going to be playing against. But let's get started. The starter for the X is Red Pulse Draco Kid. He's pretty standard. Probably the best starter for Kagero. They don't have anything super great. He's just a CB1, look for top 5, get 3, so he's just a grade 3 searcher. Just about every clan has one, so he's pretty good. And then we'll go over the boss monster for the deck, which is Dragonic Overlord the X. He just came out in GB1. For those of you who don't know, his effect is when he's in Legion, so he's a Legion, 22k. CB1, choose a card named Dragonic Overlord the X from your hand and discard it. At the end of the battle, this unit attack. If it did not hit, you may pay the effect, which is discard one of himself, and if you do, blow up 2 rear guards. His effect is okay. You're not going to be using it a lot. If you're watching any of the Japanese play, they instead of pitching one, they would just a lot of times re-legion cards back to keep from decking or to put more triggers back in, so that way they're towards the end of the game the deck is just stacked full of triggers, which is a lot of times better. His other effect is when you Legion, you can search up for a copy of what's on Vanguard. So you can search for Dragonic Overlord the X or his Legion mate, which is Dragonic Overlord the N from way back in the day, from BT05. The reason you search up extra copies of this is because you can also use his effect on Vanguard when they're in Legion, which is what makes this deck so good. Which is choose CB2, choose a card named Dragonic Overlord the End, discard it. If you when this unit attack hits, if you pay the cost, if you do stand this unit, so you can stand them both and re-attack. So it gives you 4 drive checks in 1 turn. It's also very powerful. Not many people can handle that sort of advantage. It almost always rolls out of PG or really high defense, which is kind of hard to do because even if you don't have a booster, it's 22k, and if you have Calamity Tower or one of the 7k boosters, you're looking at several stages to guard, so it's almost always a PG, or they draw like 5 cards in hand, which is good for you. You're fine with that trade. So, and then the last grade 3 you run is Perdition Dragon Overlord the Great. His effect is when he's in Legion and you attack a rear guard, you can CB1 and discard 2 cards, and if you do, you can stand. So you just attack a rear guard, and even if they guard or don't guard, you just get to free stand, basically. So you get 4 drive checks in 1 turn. This is pretty powerful. Not a lot of people. There's some decks that just can't handle that. You know, Royal Paladins, I wouldn't go into this. It's not great, but just about everything else cannot handle this in mid game because it's 4 drive checks a turn, and you're also taking out a rear guard almost always because they're not going to guard, because even without a booster, it's 20k. So if it's a 9k rear guard, it's at the minimum 2 cards just a 1 to pass it, and that's just not great. To guard a rear guard that way when you know they're going to be standing back up and attacking your Vanguard. It also allows for card selection as for defense, which is where I found it the most powerful. It gives you a lot more looks, and so let's say you hit like grade 2 on your first draft checks, which would have been on your Vanguard draft checks, and then the next turn you hit the next attack you hit like trigger PG, and you got to discard those 2 grade 2s you didn't need for defense, and you just got to pick up a PG and a trigger. That's pretty powerful. It just really helps with your defense as far as selection, plus you get to drive check 4 times in a turn. To go with that, we go down to grade 2s. I play 4 of his Legion mate, which is Perdition Dragon Dragonic Neoflame. His effect is when he's placed on the rear guards, whenever one of your opponent's rear guard in the same column as him is retired, you may CB1 and retire another unit in that column, which is pretty strong. It's okay. I don't find myself doing it a lot. There's a lot of retire in this deck. It's a nice option to have, and he's not a bad. I mean, he's 9k, so he's still a good grade 2, and you're playing with him. Like I said, there's a lot of retire effects, so it's not necessarily needed. It will come up though, like against OTT a lot. It helps pick off Silent Toms, or against Shadow Paladins, it helps pick off a lot of their annoying rear guards and keeps them off Revengers, so that way they can't restand with Abyss, which is really nice. The grade 2 that's really important to this deck and really makes it work is Draconic Burnout, and he's also 4 of. I see some list on 3, but I think he definitely should be on 4. I would cut one of these guys first. His effect is when he's placed on rear guard, you may choose a card with Overlord in your ditch, and put it on the bottom of your deck and Soul Blast 1, and if you do, you may retire opponent's rear guard. There's no restrictions on this ability, so if you use it, you can retire any rear guard you want, including starters, 2s and 1s. It just takes care of just everything, and it has basically no effect because you want to reshuffle the ends back in. Reshuffling the end back in is very important, so that way you can have more to discard for the X's effect and just keep threatening restanding with the X for 4 drive checks. A lot of people can't handle that. A lot of times the fear of you having an end in your hand if they don't know will make them overguard, which just leaves you to be able to stack triggers on your rear guards, which is really nice. And a lot of decks can't handle that kind of advantage and fear. And the last grade 2s I play as a 3 of is the 12k attacker for Overlord. He can only be turned on grade 3 or higher, but he's always on once he's on grade 3 because everything has Overlord in its name. That's a grade 3. And if you don't know, when you stride, you get to choose a card from your heart, and the stride unit develops that name as well, so they have 2 names basically. So it's always on once you hit grade 3, which is really nice. For grade 1s, I run 4 of Dragonic Gojo. He's the Restus unit, discard a card, draw a card unit for this clan. He's 7k, so that's nice. Helps you hit magic numbers. And there's no better ride target on turn 1 if you're going first, because you get to do something on turn 1. You get to ride him and then rest him and immediately discard and draw a card. It helps smooth out really bad draws. Look for the X if you didn't hit one. It also helps Legion fast, which is what you want to do in this deck a lot. You want to get Legion and start pressuring them immediately, and then finish up with your strides, or start Legion, go into strides, and at the end of the game you want to end with Legion. So he's really good because you can shuffle back really fast in this deck. You're going to be Legioning like every other turn, if not every turn, just to shuffle back and start stacking your deck as many triggers as possible towards the end game. The other grade 1s I run is right now I'm running 4 Calamity Tower Wyvern. I fluctuate this one quite a bit. I've had 2, I've had 3, and I've had 4. Right now I'm on 4. In Japan it's restricted to 2 for a pretty good reason. It just allows so much advantage in this deck. By re-legioning all the time, you have so much soul. You just draw in a lot of cards, and a lot of decks can't compete with that. You already have so much advantage, and then just free drawing is not fair, basically. Even though most clans have these, they can't afford to have the 5k booster. This deck does okay with a 5k booster. If you put it behind the Vanguard, it's very okay. That's where I generally put these guys. Because on Legion, it always makes sure that you have 3 stages, and then behind strides, it puts them up to 31k, all of them. So that's fine. 31k is fine on stride before drive checks. It's pretty good. Like I said, I fluctuate, sometimes 3, sometimes 2, and then right now it's 4. One of my friends told me if it's restricted in Japan and it's allowed in the US, I should probably play 4, so I do. But these numbers kind of change between the deck. And then the other fluctuation spot right now that I have is Violence Horn Dragon. It's a 10k attacker for Overlord, which this also fluctuates. This can be a lot of cards, and I'll go over them when we get done, what it could be. This is pretty popular, but there's other choices that are also very good, and I've tested most of them out. Right now I'm on him. I'm not really sure what it'll end up being when I get to regionals, but he's pretty good. The 10k doesn't come up a lot, but sometimes in the Kagero mirror match, it's pretty important just to have that extra attacker that's big enough to threaten something. And then the last thing you play is I play 4 Protect Orb Dragons for PGs. The free unflip is pretty good. I don't get it a lot because you shuffle back so much that there's very rarely one of these in your ditch because you want to shuffle these back. It's one of the best parts about playing Legions and so many Legions is instead of having 4 PGs all game, you get to have, I've had PG like 7-8 times in one game before, which is really strong against a lot of decks. Not letting them have on-hit effects. Specifically the Royal Paladin matchup for Saint Blow Dragon. That extra crit he gets, plus he's just so huge, it's almost impossible to guard with zeros unless you have 10 of them in your hand. So that's what I do with him a lot, and just shuffle him back. So you don't always get the free unflip, but it's pretty good. I would recommend him over Bari. They're not very expensive, so that shouldn't be a cost for anyone when they play this deck. As far as trigger lineups go, I play 8 crit. The crits don't matter. The best one technically is the one out of the trial deck. It's called Rakasha, I think. You wouldn't ever use the ability, but it goes into soul, gives something 3k. If you needed to soul blast for whatever odd reason, for Dragonic Burnout or something, plus gives something 3k. So if you want to be true spike, you could run those. It's very rarely ever going to come up, but it's 8 crit, so any of the Kagero crits will do. 4 draw. Gatling Claw Dragon especially. I cannot say much about this trigger. This is definitely one of the best triggers in the game. I would argue the best trigger in the game. Its effect is CB1, puts you in soul. If you have a Kagero Vanguard, you can choose one of your opponent's grade 0 rear guards and retire it. 1, it goes into soul, so it fuels all your soul blast effects in this deck, which there's a lot of. I showed you Burnout and Calamity Tire. Just drawing and blowing up stuff for free is good. 2, it hits a lot of the grade 0s, which in this current meta is very important. I was playtesting against Shadow Paladins, and blowing up their Judge Bow just led to a huge advantage to me. They didn't get to do any of their cool tricks with him, so they didn't get a bunch of their card advantage. So picking off grade 0s is really good. So you want to run Gatling Claw for the 4 draw, and then the 4 heal, you can run anyone you want. Kagero, they have tons. I just like this picture. So that's the trigger lineup and the deck. Grade 1s you can run instead of the Overlord Attacker is, the first one is Energy Flame Ethnic. This is the one I flip between all the time. He's really good. His effect is, put this unit in your soul. When an opponent's rear guard is put into the drop zone due to an effect from one of your cards, you may unflip 2 damage. Good on multiple reasons. Once again, it goes in the soul, so you get to do all the soul blast effects that you want. It's really easy. 2, unflips, great. You get more retires, which is just insane in this deck. Having that extra damage unflipped is just really good. So Venom is a 2 of, which is might be where I land. I might run 3 Calamity Towers and 2 of this guy, because he's really, really good. And then the last choice you have is the Lava Flow Dragon, which is the grade 1 Stride Enabler. It's okay. You can't get the Blade Master, it's for the Blade Master deck, but I don't think you really need it. I see some people run this as a 1 of, sometimes a 2 of. I don't think you need it. You play 9 grade 3s, so you shouldn't have a problem striding. Plus, striding in this deck is good. It's good in all decks, but most of your Vanguards attack twice anyway, so you get to 4 looks. 4 looks is always better than 3, and 2 attacks is always better than 1. It just requires more guards from your opponent's hand. Instead of having 1 PG for the stride, they have to have 2 PGs or a PG and a bunch of cards for the second attack. So, go over the stride deck real quick. And the first cards that you're looking at is, I run 2 Muhammad's, or Mahmud. It's not Muhammad, it's Mahmud. His effect is, when he hits, you may choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. It's pretty good. You go into him first, almost always. A lot of the opponents I see PG this attack because they hate the free retire. And they also don't want it in the mid game, because this is like really early mid game play that you go into. They just don't want to get like critted or double critted, take 2 or 3 damage, and turn 3 or 4. So it's really nice. They almost always PG this, so it's just free. And if they don't ever PG it and you hit, you get at least a retire. And if you ever hit a couple of triggers, it's really damaging early game because it makes your late game pressure super good. I'm currently running 2, and then we'll look at the boss monster of this deck is Flame Emperor Dragon King Root Flare Dragon. Root Flare's effect is auto, so during your main phase, not on attack, which is odd. I think he's the only one with auto. All the other ones are on attack. Flip one of him up, so don't forget, it has to be on your main phase. Don't do it during your attack. And if you have 2 or more in your G-Zone flip face up, that's why you have to run into him first, because you wouldn't have that effect. Choose 2 rear guards for rear guard column and blow it up. So you choose a rear guard and that column gets blown up. So you normally choose the one that has 2 cards in it, or if there's a problematic card that you need to get rid of, just blow it up. It's really nice. It's free. Just striding into this guy is really nice because he was 26k attacker, no boost. And then plus the fact that you get to blow up 2 cards most of the time, sometimes 1. I don't normally do his effect if I only need to blow up 1 card. There's enough other blow up effects that he's not worth doing that. And the last card I run in the deck right now is Atmos. Atmos effect is CB1 when he attacks, and if you do, give him 10,000 power to the end of battle. So no boost, he's 36k. In this deck, a lot of times, like I said, I put Calamity Tower in behind the Vanguard, so he's 41k most of the time on attacks. This is the biggest closer out in the game right now, I would argue. Some people don't share my opinions on Atmos. Atmos, and then the other card I will run when we get to team regionals. And the only reason I don't have them is because I can't turn my promos in yet for team regionals, and I don't want to order them when I'm going to get 4 free ones. Is the Blizzas, which will go in here, and I'll probably take one of the Muhammads out and maybe one of the Atmos because he'll apply more pressure. And the first Atmos is stronger, but the first Blizza after the first Atmos is stronger. Blizz's effect is CB1. He gets 5k for each flip up unit you have in your G zone. So he's super strong. So it'll probably be like 2 Blizzas and 1 Atmos. The reason is if you haven't gone into an Atmos yet, you won't need to go into them because you'll already have 4 cards flipped up, which is worth 20k on a Blizza. So I would suggest everyone get their playsets of Atmos and Blizzas. They're really useful in clans that don't have any stride cards, but even in the ones that do have stride cards, they're big role players. They close out games. A lot of times if you know your opponent doesn't have a PG, I'll almost always go into Atmos because it means they can't guard it. CB1 get that much power is super powerful, and with Blizzas it's even more power, so there's no way they're going to drop 9 cards from their hand to guard. So you just get free looks at crits, and if it's late game and you've been stacking your deck full of crits, you're going to hit a lot. That's how I end most games. I hit going to Atmos really late game and then just swing out, and they have to no guard it because it's so big, and then I hit 1 or 2 crits and they're done. So that's the side deck. If you have any questions about the deck, put them in the comments. I'll be gladly answer them. We can talk about the grade 1 lineups or successes you've had with grade 1 lineups. If there's any decks you want to look at before, they probably won't be up by the end of this week for team regionals in Mexico City, but the next team regionals, which I'm not sure which one that is. I think it's one of the northern ones. Put it in the comments and we'll try to cover those decks. I know we're going to get Rule of Paladin, Shadow Paladin, try to get Gear Chronicle up, and any other decks that we see that you'll probably see at regionals. I definitely would know this deck. Most of the top teams, at least one of the players, only one can be on Kagero, but they're going to be on there for the good teams. So get used to either playing it or at least know what it does. So thanks for watching, and subscribe.